Welcome to the Royal Family Real Estate Podcast, where none of us are shy about giving our opinions. We are a local, family-owned real estate brokerage and pride ourselves on being experts in the Chicagoland area. Join us on our podcast journey to hear what's going on in our local real estate market, as well as get an insider's point of view on this crazy industry. Welcome to the show.
All right, we're back for episode 3 of Royal Family Real Estate Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the NAR settlement. Fun times. We're going through a little bit of an update for people. So let's just dive right into it, friends. What's going on with the NAR settlement?
So, I'm certainly not an expert in this, but just I'll say what I understand to be what's going on. So August 17th.
Is anybody an expert in this right now, though? Let's be real.
Yeah.
We're all learning and growing. But,
say they are.
Yeah.
I think you're getting there reading all that.
Yeah. Right? Like this is everything.
This is all you need to know.
Before I
Just
go to
this.
bed.
You're a manila folder away from me, so I'm gonna listen.
Yeah, I usually it's all like scattered around my bed, and I pick it up. So
See, I know you're going to be doing that, so I only read this.
Exactly.
And then I figure you're going to fill me in on the details.
The details.
I'm on
yeah.
Brenna's level. Yeah.
In some weird way, it's interesting to me. So, but August 17th is when these changes are supposed to take place, and so the two biggest changes is the not displaying of commission, and then the buyer agency agreement. But so we've got the sellers that have done this, they've created this lawsuit class action and has gone through this whole settlement with sellers. But there's also a separate lawsuit with buyers that's out there, and from my understanding, the buyers class action, I believe it's class action, is they're appealing the settlement because they feel like they're going to be left out on their lawsuit or their whatever if they come to terms on whatever their settlement will be greatly minimized because of this settlement with the sellers.
So is it separate? It's two totally different things.
Totally.
But the buyers feel like the one with the sellers is going to affect them.
Affect how much they're able to get from compensation.
So they're appealing their own thing, or they're appealing
the seller's settlement.
even though it's two separate things, they can do that?
I guess
That doesn't make any sense
they're
to me.
appealing the ruling. I don't know that's above my pay grade.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So there is some overlap. It's two separate things, but there's some overlap going on there.
Yeah, but I don't know like if there's a reason you can appeal it because it's going to affect yours like that. We'd have to have an attorney on for that.
So for all of the agents out there that are saying, well, I hope at the last minute, like just yesterday, somebody said, well, I hope at the last minute that they're going to appeal this. And my thought was, it seems from everything I'm reading, like NAR wants to settle it yesterday. So
Yeah.
they're not going to appeal anything. So the only hope for that to happen is going to somehow come from the buyers in their settlement.
They're trying to appeal the ruling. And I don't know what the terms of the appeal or how that all works.
Yeah.
I just know that they're trying to, kind of derail it.
Mhm.
So I say that because August 17th is when this is supposed to take place. But if that all gets appealed, then it could be postponed because, maybe the terms would be different.
Yeah.
And I don't really know the basis of the buyer argument other than they're saying, I think it comes down to, hey, we could have negotiated our commission of or whatever.
Actually, I thought it was they paid overinflated prices for the house because the sellers had to pay so much for the commission, or that was part of it.
Yeah, I think that's part of
That's
it.
kind of what was ringing in my
I think
Which isn't
remembrance.
logical to me.
No,
that piece
you
at
can get
all.
rid of all the commission tomorrow. The prices aren't dropping.
No.
Yeah.
Sellers
Built
don't
in
want to
there.
take less of their house. It's just a part of what the transaction of real estate's been, right?
Yeah.
Overall.
Yeah, I agree. And I think so. Like with this new setup now, you have to have this buyer agency agreement that says you're going to be paid X. So you're going to see probably some brokers negotiating on that to say, okay, I'll do it for 2 instead of 2.5 or 2.25 or 1.5 or whatever.
Wait,
So I think
okay,
they're
so-
saying that we missed out on the opportunity to negotiate that.
Oh, okay.
And and we paid 2.5 built into the sale price. You know what I mean? So
which is just crazy making.
I
honestly.
think it's just like another money grab that they're trying to do.
Sure.
But I
Right.
think they're also trying to say, hey, there's almost $1 billion that's being
Yeah.
thrown into these seller settlements.
Yeah.
We want some of that.
Well, and I'm wondering, how is it affecting their deal?
I think because there's so much money. I think there might be, and again, I'm assuming, but there might be something that said this is a nationwide settlement, that maybe they would restrict them from being able to sue, or there's so much money that's being put out that I don't know. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think we're learning and growing in it, right?
Yeah.
And I think what it's nice about hearing that is like you hear about this settlement and you're like, oh, buyers, come here. Like, let me make sure you're taken care of, like, and supportive. Because when you hear about everything, it's like, oh, this could really hurt the buyer at the end of the day. This could screw a buyer over if this isn't done right overall for looking at this long term. So to hear that they're like raising their hands and being like, no, wait, I think that's a good thing. And how it plays out is still to be determined, I think. But so August 17th, what changes? I know to let the consumers know, to let other people know, like what's going to be changing on August 17th.
Yeah. So, I mean, bottom line is that in the MLS, it can't be used as a vehicle to display co-op compensation.
And explain co-op compensation, because I had people asking me that.
Oh, really? So that makes sense. I mean, why would
Yeah,
they
they
know
don't.
that? So it's
It's like our slang. You don't know what co-op means?
Where have you been? It's the amount of, you bring a buyer to my listing and I say, I'm going to give you 2.0% if you bring in the buyer, 2.5%.
So it's the amount the seller pays the cooperating broker, pays the buyer's broker to bring a buyer to their house.
Yeah. So when you talk with the seller, you talk about how much commission that they're paying us,
Right.
and then how much commission that we're going to give to the buyer's broker if they bring the buyer, and then maybe
they're going to give. We used to say we're going to give.
Yeah, how much they're going to give.
Yeah.
Right. And if we bring the buyer,
we learn and grow.
Right.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's one of the big changes already that's happened because of this.
Definitely.
A year ago, I would have said, this is my commission. I'm offering this much out to the buyer's agent. Now it's up to the seller what they want to offer the buyer's agent. And that amount, you're saying, cannot be displayed anymore on the MLS.
Correct.
Which is our website that we put all of our listings in. For anybody who doesn't know what the MLS is.
Yeah. Oh, now we're getting really.
Well, I mean,
So it's
these
true,
are the
yeah.
questions
It's
people
true.
have had when they listened to it. So I want to be sure that it's
Totally.
clear.
It stands for multiple listing service.
It's the foundation of where the homes go in there, and then they go out to the Zillows, the Realtor.coms, the Redfins there. But it's the home base, right?
Yeah.
It's the best way to be able to, or not maybe the best way, one of the ways to be able to explain it to a consumer.
It's created an environment that all of us brokers cooperate with each other. So it's a very fair way to do business. I show 123 Main Street. I know how much I'm going to be compensated. If I'm not compensated as much as I have the agreement with the buyer, then I have to tell the buyer and they make up the difference, or they decide they don't want to see it because they don't want to make up the difference. But it's a fair way to say, hey, this is how much you're going to get paid. And if you bring this buyer in the door, that brokerage has to pay you. So it's like this great way that we all cooperate with each other, because if I've got a listing, it's not likely that I'm going to have that buyer, because there's 46,000 realtors out there
Totally.
that can show the property. So and that has created this great system that then all these other websites such as Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, our website, IDX connections, that feed into everywhere that a buyer's looking. So it's created this wonderful system that if a listing comes on the market through a broker, everyone's going to see it. So now when we take this display of compensation off, I think you get into a place where it becomes more commercial-like, where commercial real estate, where you don't have easy access to information.
Mm-hmm.
Things could become a lot more private, and it becomes more difficult for a consumer to find out all the homes that are out there, but then buyers, brokers become that much more important.
Yeah, for sure. And you talk about a lot of this lawsuit is about transparency. Like it's kind of taking some in my opinion, taking some transparency away from that. But I also have enough trust that like things are still being painted. I talk to realtors, even outside of our office, and like people are up in arms about this. And like, just like, I think it's important for us to stay calm and keep in front of us like the facts that are happening, and then adapt or pivot there. During our meeting yesterday, you talked about like we need to get into the forest before we really figure this out. And I'm like, it's a great analogy, because when you don't know what's in there or how this is going to work or how we're going to adapt to it as a whole, like, yeah, you need to get into it, and you might get punched a little bit while you're in there.
Right.
You might have to chop down some trees to get to where you need to go. But at the end of the day, it's something that we're going to have to work through. So what do you like, where we sit now? That's August 17th is a big day.
Well, so that's
what
the
else?
one piece, right? The co-op. And so then with that, then let's say I put a listing on the market, and I have 20 buyers that want to see it with their brokers that want to show their buyers. Now, those brokers, how do they know how much they're going to be compensated? Because part of their buyer agency agreement has to tell their buyer if they're going to have to bring any money to the table to pay their co-op. So let's say if they have a buyer agency agreement says, hey, I need a minimum of 1.5%, but I'm going to try to get the other 2.5% from the sellers. But if I don't, if you're giving me 1.5, if we've got 2.5, what am I saying? If we've got 1.5 in the buyer agency agreement, and the seller's only offering 1, then I have to notify you beforehand, because then you have to pay the other
cover that
0.5%.
difference. Yeah.
Or if we've got 2% in there and they're only offering 1, you're going to owe me 1%, but I'll let you know before we see the property that you're going to owe me money, right? That makes sense?
Yes.
So then what we have to do is we have to find out how much that listing is offering out. How do we do that?
Which is a different flow for us.
Right.
Totally.
So to be clear, the MLS is where we all put our homes for sale as agents into, right? That's where we search for homes. That's where we find out all the information about homes. That's where we send homes we think our buyers are interested to them from. And in that has always said how much the seller is offering the buyer's agent for co-op. And on August 17th, that's going away.
Right.
Right. But also on August 17th, we have to have a buyer's agency agreement with every buyer we show a house to that says we're going to be paid this much. So whatever the seller isn't paying us, you're going to have to make up that difference, right? But it's not going to be there for us to tell the buyer before we go how much they might have to pay us.
Broken down well.
So now we're all going to have to try to figure out what's being offered out and try to figure out where to put it that the cooperating agents can find it. And it's going to be really hard.
Well, yeah, because you can't be on, let's say, Zillow. It can't be on any type of system that is pulling data from the MLS.
Right.
So if so even showing time, that pulls data from the MLS.
Right.
So I don't see how you can use showing time as a place to display compensation. So if there's any data from my understanding, if any data being pulled from the MLS, that hub of where the data is going to cannot be used in any way to display compensation. So we can put it on our website, but that's if brokers are going to display it on their website. I'm not sure all will. And but then
it goes back to we need to be in the woods to see what's happening.
And even if they display it on their website, what happens if they change the compensation? How do we have any record that they changed it?
Change it?
They can change it. Let's say they change it.
Do we need a record of why they changed it?
Well, let's say we saw 2.5% today.
Right.
And then you go and show the house tomorrow, but they changed it tomorrow morning.
I get what
How do you know that it was changed? Like in the MLS, there's a
that.
record saying that it was changed this
Right.
time, and you know what I mean?
Right.
So who's going to police that? So the only real way to have some certainty there is probably to get something signed stating that this is what the co-op is.
So now not only do we have to call them and find out what the co-op is, now we have to get something signed before we show the house.
I just don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's
We
going
all
to
know
be
their
some,
best friend's selling it now because
Yeah.
they're not giving us that information before they give it to their best friend. This is all supposed to be to make things more transparent, and it's less transparent than ever.
It's shady.
Yeah.
That's the scary part about it, and to me it leaves us open for disruption. Us as agents, we know our value, and anybody.
Here goes the technology.
Well, it's not a technology, and I'm not going to go too far into it for the sake of I didn't bring ibuprofen for you guys, but every business is disrupted. It's not just our business. Every business is going to be disrupted with how these phones work, how the apps work, and you look at artificial intelligence. Every industry is going to be disrupted over the next now to 10 years and probably even more. So, but it's about transparency at the end of the day for the agent, right? And it's about to us. We know the relationship
for the consumer.
I mean.
Yeah.
But for us as agents, it's about it's the value we bring. Artificial intelligence can't bring. When Brenna Freskos goes into a listing appointment, the depth of knowledge that is in your brain to be able to help guide people through it is huge. The same thing for the buy side, right? Like we're more than door openers, and they're talking about, look at Redfin's model. Like that's a door opener model. Let's just be real. The splits they're paying the agents aren't really good splits at all. They have this database that they could get, attention for, but you're not getting a strong local agent when like you work with the Royal Family Real Estate.
They'll have, an independent contractor show it, and then you have a different agent write the offer. Like the agent that wrote the offer has no idea about.
How do you know what you're doing? You're just plugging numbers on it. You don't understand the age of the roof. You don't understand. Yeah. Right. So many things. So I think my reason for saying this, and I'll come off the rabbit hole, but is really just like we're here. We need to go through the woods, and we need to be able to get through this to be able to figure it out. But we should also I hope we get more support as we continue to go evolve when it comes to this, because they're talking about transparency, and to me, this is not transparent at the end of the day.
What I found most interesting that I heard from anyone at all recently was that article that you sent about the one MLS that is refusing to go with this. Mm-hmm. And I kind of thought as an MLS. So for people that are listening that don't know, MLS is different in every area, has their own MLS, right?
There's like almost 600 in the nation.
Right. So we have our own in this area, but there's one in another area that is refusing to opt into this because they're saying just that. There's no transparency, to it. And I didn't realize that was something you could do.
Yeah, so that was
a little bit more.
There's more on that. I didn't know that too when I sent it.
So what more was it?
Royal shed some light on it.
So you read the whole thing, not just the first paragraph?
No. I don't think they actually. This is. Like,
I felt like what I could read in there was really short. It wasn't a whole lot.
No. But I think you have to kind of have to know the background a little bit. From my understanding, I'm gonna put the
disclaimer.
This is my understanding.
Got it. Disclaimer.
Yeah. This is not a guarantee. But Northwest MLS, which NW MLS, I think is the one that said that, okay, we're not gonna go into these terms,
right.
Because they have we're owned by a realtor associations.
The MLS?
MRED, yeah.
Okay.
So ultimately, you have MLS&I that is part of all. It's all these associations. I think there's 7. I'm probably wrong there, but right around there. And they ultimately control what happens. So if you want to make some major change to an operating agreement, it's got to go through the motions, and these associations as a group have to agree to that. So, so it's realtor owned, because you have to be a realtor to be in our MLS, MRED. You have to be a realtor. Mm-hmm. So you have attorneys that are members of our MLS and they're realtors. So that's a whole nother thing, how that just waters down what it means to be a realtor. But this Northwest MLS, you don't have to be a realtor. You can be you can have a real estate license and be a part of it. So a non-member, and that's not something MRED has now. Will they change that in the future? Maybe, but that's not the way it is now. Okay. So they're not covered under the settlement.
Oh.
They're not covered. So if they want to
So that's not an
If-
option
if
for
they-
our MLS.
If they want to buy into this settlement,
Be a lot cooler
and-
if it was.
and
Yeah.
if they want to be covered under
Yeah.
this settlement, so where they don't get sued in the future,
Right.
they have to pay $100 per member. So 35,000 members,
Yeah.
$3.5 million.
Yeah.
So do we pay $3.5 million? Do we have I don't know what their financial position is, but that's a lot of money.
Right.
So do we pay that, or do we go against the grain and say, hey, we're going to fight this, and we're not going to pay it, and we're going to continue to display compensation? And then my thought is, okay, you do that. Like if I own a major company and I just settled for $10-20 million of all these things that were wrong with co-op compensation being displayed,
Right.
but now I'm going to continue to offer compensation in something I just got sued on. Am I going to want to be part of that platform? So that's kind of an interesting,
Yeah.
whether or not there'll be any pushback or a different model there that will be a system that won't display it, then those brokers don't become part of that. But anyways,
Be interesting
So
to
could
see.
somebody then potentially just start a new MLS here that is not owned by the boards, that is not whatever, and
Yeah.
put up the compensation on it?
they could, but then the problem is you have to get all the brokers to utilize that, right? And pay for the services. And
Well,
So-
I would pay for it.
The
If I
amount
can
of
go
time
one
it's gonna
stop shop
save.
like I have been
Yeah.
for 17 years.
yeah, but
know.
would your brokerage pay for it? Because would I want to be part of that now, and where now I could get sued in the future because we're part
So-
of this system?
That's
Mhm.
a question that I had
I don't
too.
know.
And you just seem to know more legalities stuff than I do.
Has to do with that manila folder.
I think a little bit, yeah.
I would
So-
hope some of it sticks.
Does this settling means nobody can be sued for anything ever again?
No,
I mean, can't they just pick some other little nuance that kind of directs towards the same thing and sue again? I feel like everybody's acting like all this stuff absolutely has to be done to this T in order to protect everyone forever. But come on,
yeah,
that's not going to be the case.
yeah.
As soon as people are seeing you can sue for any little thing on it, there's a million different ways that they could do that.
Sure.
You
They'd
know?
have to have a class action probably, to pool
Yeah.
enough people together to make it worthwhile for the attorneys to do.
Right.
And then they'd have to have a solid case.
Well,
So
I don't feel like the last case was solid, but here we are.
well, a jury did.
A jury of non-homeowners, renters, and what have you.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
it went on for 4 years, finally went to trial. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I feel
it's a
like
lot of changes.
I feel like
Yes.
transparency is good for the industry. We need to get into the woods to figure out really what that means. I think for the seller, this works right now, but from the buyer, this still has holes in it that we're still trying to figure out. And it sounds like the MLSs and the NARs and all that are still trying to figure it out too.
I mean,
Overall,
I think part of it too is everyone's just panicking because we were used to a very
Totally.
easy system.
yes.
Now we have to, work a little bit harder to show our value to the buyers.
It's not every agent's
So it's
strength
just
is
not gonna
working
be
hard.
as easy,
No offense. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even really seeing it that way.
part-time
I think it's
agents,
going to be
yeah.
easier with the buyers because you're getting agreements signed with them. They don't have a choice but to sign an agreement.
For
Well,
sure.
You know
Well,
what I
that-
mean?
That's if you get them to sign. I think like for the people that know us well and trust us, it won't be a problem because they'll trust us and we'll go through the process. But if you've got someone that just calls on 123 Main Street and they want to
That's
see your
It's harder
listing,
to convert.
I think
yeah.
that's going to be hard to get them to sign something.
But then they're going to call somebody else on 123 Main Street and they're going to have to sign something with them. And then they're going to call somebody else and you're just going to hope to be the third agent where they realize this is the deal now. If
Yeah.
you want to see a house, you have to sign something.
Yeah. and it
Now
could-
there's different things that you could are options, but you have to sign
Yeah.
something or you're not getting in the door.
And
right. Well,
Go
could
ahead.
be. Go ahead.
No, it's at the end of the day, it's this could be good for the buyer overall because of that transparency up front. Like our fee is this is what we are getting paid for. We'll see what the seller is being willing to pay, but here's my fee at the end of the day. I think that's a good thing for our industry. I think where this it could struggle is there's a lot of first-time home buyers out of people don't have equity to pull from, that if we ask them to pay 2.5% on a $400,000 house, this shifts our market, because I don't know if not everybody could bring that money to the table to be able to cover that. If the seller truly takes it away, which I don't think they will, I don't think it's in their best interest at the end of the day, but that's a piece of it. Yeah.
I kind of think what could happen is they say, hey, let's buy a house. Maybe we should consider buying a house. Maybe we should look at some houses. And then before they can even get in a door, they're going to have to sign a piece of paper that says,
it's the new norm.
You're going to maybe have to pay this amount of money, right? And they're going to say, I don't have that money. Apparently, I'm not ready to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to retreat and save more money. So are we like, that could lead to a whole thing of pushing like the average age of a first-time home buyer back. I mean, that would be my thought. I know that's how my kids would think. They'd say, I have to sign something with somebody. It looks like it's this amount. We got to go save that amount.
Yeah.
So, well, here's what I would say is I think, one, you're going to have brokerages like ours that are going to come up with some type of one property, one showing agreement that's going to be kind of a very soft way of creating an agreement, but it won't restrict them from, being locked down, because you're going to see, you already, Zillow, I think, is having that at Redfin, where there's going to be very, like, we need to have something, but it's going to be something very soft that you're not going to have, you're not contractually going to be bound to for however long.
And it's going to drive us to the relationship, right? So, at the end of the day, to earn that.
Yeah. So but it's just going to be they're going to have to sign something, but some agreements will be a lot stronger than others. But then, I just find it hard to believe that by us not representing buyers, it's going to have any impact on home sales. I think like what'll happen is that instead of being like, I have to save for that, I'll just go straight to the listing broker and not pay it. I think that could definitely, come on, we worked with enough people to know that not everyone's going to be that way, but there's a certain group that's going to be like, I'm just going to call each listing agent.
They're already doing
I don't need to pay
Yeah.
anybody.
And that's fine. And if that's what the majority of people end up doing, all that's going to happen is the seller's commission is going to go straight back to where it was. It's just all going to one agent instead of two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it depends on how
one way or another, it'll all swing back.
Is it dual agency or is it buyer agent, no buyer agency, right? Is it depending on how the agent is.
And the seller's got tons of agency behind them and the buyer has nothing.
Yeah, so it's pretty clear that we've seen co-op commissions trend downward now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Right. There's never, I have never seen them
flat fees
consistently
in there
going down.
Yeah, 1.5% flat fees. Yeah, so you're seeing that shift.
Yeah, and it's a perfect environment for sellers to have that situation happening, because there's no inventory. And, a lot of these agents are probably like, just get this buyer off my plate. Like, I can't keep showing. I just want to be done. You pay me and I'll give you this. But I'm kidding. But
it's funny that you say that though, because just this morning, right, we're setting up a final walkthrough with a buyer I'm working with. And if you're listening, I say this with all love. And she was like, it's been a wild 8-year ride. And I'm like, wait, what? Has it been 8 years? Sure enough, I looked up I was like, do you remember what the first property was we looked at? And she's like, yeah, it was that one, So I went in my email and punched it in. There's my showing confirmation from 2016.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Holy cow.
8 years. Yeah. So, that's exactly it. Like right now, you can't find, the inventory is low. It wasn't in 2016, but the lower and lower the inventory got, the longer and longer each buyer's looking.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. So, if things start to evolve and, maybe a buyer's agent needs to pay into all these different systems to find out where properties are, because they're not all in one place, such as like a top agent network. I think top agent, or there's I forget the name of it, but there used to be this, what I'm talking about? There used to be that
top agent. I don't know.
used to be a platform that would almost like a private listing network that agents would pay into and have access to, kind of like coming soon properties. It's really no longer a thing because the PLN now. But anyhow, this could evolve where there's all these different places where listings are, and buyers agents have to pay to get access to that. So, then the compensation goes up to buyers agents if you want access to all those homes. Kind of like commercial. I mean, they're commercial real estate. There's only as a buyer, you go on to LoopNet to look at commercial, but that's only a fraction of what's out there.
It's LoopNet, CoStar, right? Or
CoStar is like where really all the information is, but you have to pay $500 a month for membership in that.
Yeah, it's expensive
just to have access to it.
Yeah.
So, and then.
But what isn't in there is compensation.
So
that's commercial brokers where they look for commercial properties
through this to understand maybe possibly what our industry could look like from the residential side. They don't have the commission on CoStar or LoopNet either. It's more for them, they write it in their letter of intent. So what their fee is, which I could see us doing too. But we have to get through that first realm of like, okay, buyer, we're seeing this house. It's this, right?
First, all the buyers agents will just quit if that happens.
Here's what I would say about that. Though, is that commercial real estate is struggling
for sure,
right?
Especially with office.
Residential real estate's not. So like commercial seller is like, yes,
totally,
yes, bring me a buyer, please.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back there, and I said it in the last podcast. I'm going to say it again, and I've said it to you guys in between. I believe in the buyer agency co-op. I believe the seller should, offer it. I believe they should offer something hefty because no matter, in my opinion, what the market is like, that amount is less than the potential upside of bringing more buyers. So if the market is bad, you want them to bring it,
totally,
right?
It's a shift with
and
the
nobody
market.
has a question about that, right? If the market is, if there's tons of inventory and you want them to pick your house, you're going to say, hey, I'll pay your agent, just pick my house, right? And if the market is good, everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to save 1%. What is 1%? I'm going to save $3,000, but leave some of the buyers off the table now. So I have less chance of a multiple offer situation, which typically in the current market might go 40,000 over list. That's
or more. Yeah.
That, right? Like the potential upside.
Yeah, but
why be worrying over a percent to 0.5%?
Part of that argument, though, is what we got sued for. Not we, like our company, but the NAR is that can't steer towards based on commission.
I'm not talking about steering based on commission. Let's say this goes through and the buyer has to pay the commission. The buyer is deciding, I got 6 houses or I got 2 houses and I only have this much money. And you know what? I'm going to have to replace the carpet in that one. So now I don't want to pay my agent on that one because I would have to replace the carpet. Yeah. So take that one out of the running. Let's just focus on this one or whatever. Anytime the buyer has to come up with more money, and now let's just assume it's the buyer coming up with more money, they're more likely to look at houses where they don't have to spend as much money.
Sure. Totally agree. But what we haven't found out is what is that number where the buyer has to start paying money?
That's because it's not happening yet. The seller is still offering a hefty amount.
For sure.
Right.
But as soon as seller gets down to 0, let's just say, and buyer has to spend that money, for sure they are cherry picking through just like they used to with appliances. Now I never see, everybody offers all their appliances. But when I first started, people didn't offer all their appliances. And I certainly had buyers, lots of them that were like, oh, I don't have any extra. We're barely skating into this house. We don't have money to buy a stove and a refrigerator. Let's not look at that one. You know what I mean? And that'll be the same with, okay, how much am I going to owe on commission on that one? Let's not look at that one.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that's what I struggle with is because we don't know at what point the buyer has to pay anything, so.
Yeah, you're never going to know that.
Well, I think we'll get an idea.
Another 0.5% or 1%.
Being in the woods, I think we're going to learn that.
Yeah, I think we'll get a pretty, because let's remove the 0 because I think that's a terrible idea. I mean, offering 0 to a co-op, because then you're just saying like, hey, just take the sign calls or any buyers you have in your network, and and then the buyers have to pay their like that. That's gonna greatly
I think
reduce
that's where
your.
people think it's going, though.
Well, I think
I
That's
don't-
why we're
I-
talking right now.
Yes, I don't think it's going there. I don't think much is going to change in the long run, but
I think
But I-
numbers will shrink. Yeah.
to the people thinking do you think that's where it's going?
0?
Yeah.
No, not at all.
No?
But
Okay.
my question, and this is why I think this is a good thing, is that now we're starting to get an understanding of what the market feels is a fair co-op. We've never had that. It's always been
Well, maybe.
roughly 2.5%, right? And who's that been determined by? So you could say sellers.
Are we going to have to bleep that out?
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
There's no bleeping here in a
Too
Royal
far.
Family Real Estate
But
Podcast. Just being real, yeah.
that the 2.5 or whatever that co-op percentage is, has been talked about, and we've of course talked about that when we go over our listing agreement, like,
Right.
hey, this is how much you pay us, and this is how much we're paying the co-op. And frankly, we've never known if less than 2.5 or whatever that percentage is, roughly around there, we've never known how much of an impact that would have on our showings.
Mhm.
So to be fair, I've always felt like if we go lower than that, that's going to have an impact, because then you could get agents or buyers that determine that they're not going to see it because maybe some agreement and whatnot. So with that they have with their buyers. So we've never really known that. Now we're in an environment where you're seeing that co-op greatly fluctuate. I haven't seen many 0s. I've seen a couple
I've not
1s.
seen
I've
any
seen a
0s.
couple flat fee, low flat fee,
I haven't seen
and a bunch that are in the 2.25, 2.5. So as this market evolves, we'll kind of see, I think we'll kind of see a market rate.
Totally.
Get
It'll
better
happen
from that.
organically just through time and us going through the process. We'll really see what the value is on both sides, because the consumers will dictate it. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's going to drop lower and then pick back up
Go
again,
middle
because
route.
something that
Depends on
isn't
the market,
playing
right?
into it right now, though,
sure.
is the buyers aren't probably paying it yet, because most of the agents aren't making them sign agreements. I know our
They're scared
office
to.
is, right?
Yeah.
So our buyers going into each house know ultimately, like, this is, if the co-op is this is what I'm going to have to pay, or da, 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 da. But I think most of the agents are not having their buyers sign anything. And if it's 1% or 0 or whatever it is, they just got to deal with that, right? Like, it isn't the buyer making the decisions yet, because they're not signed to a
They're
certain
not
amount.
have to yet.
Right. Well, and here's another thing coming with this change is that whatever this is something I've been talking with everyone in the office, is like, first of all, we got to get these buyer agency agreements signed, like get used to that.
Totally.
And then whatever
And then
number you,
signed, because we need a new one.
huh?
We need a new buyer agency agreement.
Depending on what you have it at. Yeah.
No, the one that says that where the excess goes, we have to get rid of that.
Oh, yeah.
And sign new ones with all of our buyers. So note to your next meeting.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Something
Thanks,
else to
Jen.
do.
Jen reminded me.
Adds in his manila folder.
Yeah. Isaac.
So, yeah.
Well, hold on, but
Yeah, keep going. I would love to be able to anything else on this, but just kind of get ready to wrap up the show.
Yeah,
for this
yeah.
one. Yeah.
oh shoot, what were you just saying that I was going to comment on?
I don't know what I'm saying.
Dang it.
It's lost.
It was
Because I said they're not signing buyer agents agreements yet.
Oh, yes,
so
yes. I
they're
got-
not owing anything yet.
Right. So whatever you put in that agreement now,
Right.
or I guess there might be some moderate, we have an addendum to the agreement if you've already got one or a brand new one, whatever. But if we've got whatever percent in there now, let's call it 2.5% in there now, and the co-op is 3%, then you can't get paid more than 2.5.
Right.
So, or if you've got 2% and the co-op is 2.5, you can't get paid more. So that's something that will, I think, have an impact as we go into this, because now you can just put something in there and you can get the excess, like you're saying.
Right.
But, when this changes, like
Well,
whatever
that's
you
gonna
put in there
change.
is what you're getting. So if you put 0, like you don't have to pay me anything, I'm going to get paid by the seller. Well, if the seller's not willing to pay, then you have to represent that buyer
No matter what.
all the way to closing and to the best you can, and you're not going to be compensated. Just the way it's going to go.
Yeah.
And so therefore, a bunch of agents are going to drop out, right? A bunch of buyers agents will probably drop out. So that'll be great for all the ones that are like,
They're still rolling.
this is what I'm going to need to be paid, whether it's from this person, that person, this person, because I'm worth it.
Yeah, 100%.
The cream will
And
rise
there's
to
a
the
ton of
top
value
at the end
of the
with
day.
what we
Yeah.
provide. Yeah, and it's not a bad thing if people that are doing 1 or 2 a year are feeling like this is too much of a hassle and they don't want to do it. So hopefully it'll raise the professionalism.
Yeah. And buyer awareness of the value of
Beautiful
the
thing.
buyer's agent. I had that conversation with one of my sellers, when I'm working with buyers all the time, they was like, okay, well, let's just offer them list. I mean, even when the market was bad, let's just offer, I'm like, ho, slow down, slowly roll. You know what I mean? Like it's well worth it to pay a good agent with lots of experience, whether you're the buyer or the seller. By far, you're going to make more money than you're paying.
A good buyer's agent will save you tons of money at the end of the day.
Tons of money.
From the things that they see. I even remember you mentoring me at doing showings. It was a townhome in Palatine, and you're going through like, that'll cost money. That'll cost money. That's my impersonation of you, by the way. That'll cost you money, and that'll cost you money. If you're new into the game, if you haven't been a homeowner before, if you don't have a lot of experience in real estate,
Right.
you're not going to see those things, and those things are going to hit you on the back end. So bottom line is our industry is changing, evolving. Maybe to your point, not that much. We'll see. To your point, I agree. We need to be in the woods to really figure this out. We need more of it to continue.
Yeah, because any
to
change
play.
we make now
Oh,
is,
yeah.
We might have to pivot again.
Yeah, I mean, but going back to my comment about the 2.5% and the co-op, and that what we
That's just a random number.
And that, well, I think when I said that's what we had in the listing agreement. That is, I think the basis of a lot of these lawsuits. But when we went over it with our sellers, I think, I know I did, and that was what was trained, is that, we have a very, this is what we're offering the co-op, and this is what, if you look at everything that's on the market, this is what this one's at 2.5. They were all magically at 2.5, but we were showing them those co-op, the co-op on other listings. So they were seeing that, then they could decide where they wanted to be. And if they wanted to be the one that was at 1.5 or 2, then they could be risking, having people coming through because of maybe the buyer having to pay their broker. So I always feel like we did a good job explaining that, but I'm not sure that the industry necessarily did.
I'm sure they did not.
No, I would agree. So, all right. Anything else on NAR settlement for this time? Sure, we'll be back on this again.
There's a lot more, but we'll wrap it up there.
Yeah.
I think we'll have time next time to keep people updated. I think that's our goal when we talk about NAR settlement, is to you as the consumer, like, here's what's happening. The news is saying X. They're giving you just the small piece of it, but the true facts are, get a local realtor that knows what they're doing and understands the changes and how it's going to impact you as the consumer. And I think that's our goal here at Royal Family Real Estate, is like, let's just be real. Let's be honest. And right now we're saying we're going into the woods, and follow us. We got your back, right?
Yeah.
As we continue to evolve, and through our experience, we're going to have, be able to pivot and be able to put your interests at the best of mind. But,
yeah. I mean, that's what's great about our company, is that we can make changes pretty quickly and adapt and then make it as easy as on the brokers as possible to handle whatever systems we need to create to handle this.
And in turn, because of those systems and strong systems, we're going to be able to take care of our buyers and our sellers even more so. So I love being a part of the brokerage and love doing the podcast with you guys. But let's close this one off, and let's look out to the next one. So, friends,
signing up.
Just follow us. Come hang out with us and learn about the changes, things that are growing. This will just
not creepy, follow while I'm driving down the road.
To you, maybe. Do not follow me. Follow Royal.
Follow us on social media.
Follow us on social media. Follow us on our podcast. What you're going to get from the three of us is always truth in our opinion. So, friends, thank you for listening. Peace out. Follow and subscribe.